And we are the Sunday Funday guys. Blake, we are back. Summertime is over with. Kids going back to school. Mine in particular goes back Friday. Can't wait. How's your summer been, buddy?
Great, man. Happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, Fanatics, we're back for year two, season two, however you want to word it, of the Sunday Funday guys fantasy podcast. So we're going to make a few changes, but this is more of a test run. And we're going to talk to you a little bit today about draft strategies. Drafts are coming up, probably starting this week and going all the way up until probably the Labor Day weekend, I would assume. And we're going to talk about several different strategies to help as you navigate through your fantasy leagues in terms of depending on contingent on what type of draft you're having. If it's two running backs, two receivers, two quarterbacks, three receivers, there's a whole litany of ways you can do it. So Blake, kick it off. Tell me about some draft strategies you either implore or have when you go to draft your teams.
This year is interesting. Last year was the first year where a zero RB approach really panned out. Traditionally, everyone targets running backs right out of the gate, right? Dive right in, running back heavy. Last year it wasn't the case. And I'm curious if this year plays out that way as well, because there's a lot of analysts talking about a zero RB approach and taking those wide receivers early.
Yeah.
Sometimes as many as 3 out of your first 4 picks.
I did that last year in one of my leagues.
And it probably worked out for you.
It didn't work out bad, let me just tell you that. But if you would have told me I'd be doing that 5 years ago, I'd like, listen, man, I don't know what you're smoking, but get off of it. But that's how much the league has changed in 5 years.
So I don't know if it's a smokescreen and that because it worked last year, now everyone wants to take this approach, or are we seeing a shift in the league?
It's probably, I think you're going to have people that are always traditionalists. Like I was a traditionalist for a long time in terms of taking a running back, even two within the first 3 picks. But I've actually changed my ways. So I'm coming out of the dark ages and getting on with what everybody's doing. But I think you're always going to have a person whose preference is to take a running back, contingent on who's out there, contingent if it's a keeper. I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into, when you draft. Are you keeping the keeper and what rounds you picked him in? So if you pick Christian McCaffrey, you keep him, then you lose a first round pick, or there's strategy involved in that. There's a lot of things that go into how you pick who's being kept. I would assume more receivers are being kept than any. I mean, back in the day, you never kept a receiver. Let's be honest. I mean, he'd have to be. I won't even know who that would be. Maybe Calvin Johnson. Maybe you thought about keeping, but now people are even keeping the tight ends with Travis Kelce and Kittle. I mean, people are keeping tight ends and receivers over running backs. So that's again, the way that things are trending, you're definitely getting away from running back heavy teams, the more versatile wide receiver. Running backs you can catch, obviously, with PPR become huge weapons. So, and you can get those in the later rounds as well.
Yeah. And in reality, if you want to go in with a specific approach, I mean, it really also plays your draft position plays a role. So
Correct.
You're towards the end of round 1. You have to be, if you want to go a zero RB approach, you're going to be okay with a AJ Brown, Puka Nacua start. And then who does that leave you with at running back?
Slim Pickens.
How far do you want to go? Do you take it 3-4 rounds before you look at a running back then? You're going to have to go really heavy at running back at that point.
Or do you take the number 1 tight end, whoever that may be, instead of a running back? Again, tight ends are even going, or some lower RB1 running backs. Again, I was hurt. You might get one, but I guarantee you this year, I wouldn't be surprised if 3 to 4 tight ends went in the top 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Which is maybe even top 3 rounds.
Give me number 5. I think there's 5 in that top tier.
Yeah.
I'll take Kincaid at the very bottom.
Yep.
As soon as that run goes, that's when it's time to take Kincaid.
Yep.
For me.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And I think other folks who subscribe to the receiver, theory in terms of drafting, you got to know your league. Like you got to know, are there bonuses for so many receptions or so many receiving yards? Are you playing 3 wide receivers in a flex and only 2 running backs? I think more and more leagues are starting to go to that 3 wide receiver setup. Hence the reason wide receivers are coming off the board quicker.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, I always think about this. Like there's so many receivers out there. Like all you need, you can get one in a later one. That one could strike gold. Puka Nacua. He's a perfect example. That's what I mean. So again, the days of going running back heavy are definitely diminished. I think there's still an opportunity to do that. But you better have a plan going in on what you're going to do at receiver in the lower round. And if you got a plan, then I don't have a problem with you taking running back. But again, you better have a running back that can catch. And he better be able to put up points in the passing game as well as run the ball too.
Being flexible is huge because you might have that last pick, and if everyone goes receivers and you've got a value option there sitting in running back and the last pick, you'd be crazy not to take that option instead of and stick with your original approach.
No, I agree.
So then you also can go a hero RB approach. You get that stud with a CMC or whoever it may be, and then don't touch another running back until round 7.
Yep.
Lean on him and hope that one of your 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 round picks that are all running back just hit. And in that case, you pick, you go to those crowded backfields. You go to the ones that you're like,
right.
Do I want Zach Moss? Do I want Chase Brown?
Right.
One of the two is going to hit.
Right. It's a flip of a coin.
So how many backfields can you get a part of and get maybe a home run?
I got a question for you. Are the days of the handcuff running back over with? Is that necessary anymore?
I think it depends who your running back is.
Okay.
If you've got an injury prone back,
yeah,
probably not a bad idea.
Right. But I feel like that was people would always say I could handcuff him. Like I rarely hear that anymore when I'm drafting. Nobody says anything about a handcuff. Like I'm not, or even it's more like, yeah, I got his handcuff. Well, so what? I mean, but that used to be a big thing. Like, you got to get, if Derrick Henry's get picked, you got to get whoever's behind Derrick Henry because he might get hurt. Probably going to get hurt. Or Christian McCaffrey, you got to get his handcuff. But you don't really hear that term anymore. Any of my draft picks, I very rarely hear the word handcuff. And that was like if you draft this guy, you best believe you better get that other guy quickly.
I think part of that becomes, or as a result of these backfields that do have 2 running backs. So the depth of the position is deeper, whereas before we valued the starting running back so much, and there was only one in most cases. You never had a 2-headed monster, a 3-headed monster.
Right.
So you can go. I would personally rather spend my draft capital on a back in a split backfield than handcuffing a running back who might never play.
Right. No, I agree. I was just curious to get your thoughts about that. You can look at Miami's backfield last year. I mean, with Achane and Mostert, and they had Jeff Wilson. I mean, they had about 4 or 5 running backs, and each of them at certain given times had great games. But again, that's pulling the dice a little bit. But again, you don't hear that word handcuff. And I distinctly remember not too long ago, actually, people were like, "Oh, you got to get his handcuff," or even the fantasy publications, like there would be a segment about handcuffs, like who you want to handcuff. But you just don't see that anymore. And I think to your point, with teams knowing that they can't have a running back get 30 carries a game and be efficient, why can't we have 2 that can get 15 apiece and we have the same type of production and the running backs are fresher for a long period of time? So the handcuff, I guess, era is probably dying a slow death as well, just because of the nature of the game and everything's changed. And it's the same with receivers and running backs who you're drafting, even tight ends. Again, tight ends are, they're going off the board earlier and earlier every year between the Kelseys, and now you got Laporta. You go on and on and on. You said, there's a top 5 hierarchy, then it kind of falls off, but then there'll be one. Typically, every year, one tight end comes out of nowhere and he balls out, and then that tight end probably got drafted in the later rounds, or maybe not even drafted at all. So I'm one to kind of wait on tight ends. Top guys aren't there. And typically, they never are because they fly off the board quick. It's sometimes too quick for my liking, but again, everybody has a different draft strategy.
Tell you what, I got Julius Thomas during the Peyton Manning era.
Yeah. He still remembers those good times.
I do. It was 1 year.
Thank you, Peyton. Cool. Well, Fanatics, we're just doing a test run right now. We'll be back soon enough to give you the scuttlebutt every week on fantasy football. Until then, my name is Jason,
I'm Blake.
and we are the Sunday Fun Day guys. Talk to you soon.